Well, good afternoon, everybody. Look forward to a tremendous webinar this evening. I'm really happy to have Gil Phelan here with me. Gil is someone I've known for, goodness, about 20 years now. It's a little scary, isn't it, Gil?
Yes, sir.
20 years. Anyway, um, and what we're going to do is we're going to let people sign in. I see the sign in count going up. It just takes a few minutes for people to get logged in, and then I'll do a formal introduction of you, Gil, and what you're doing with us and in Costa Rica. But I guess for now, as people get signed in, please in the bottom there is a chat box, the Q&A box, and if you go to that Q&A, you can type in anything during the presentation, obviously questions you might have for Gil or for me. But in the meantime, if you just want to type in real quick where you're calling in from, we always like to know where people are. Hey, the UK, I love it. I love it. Thanks, Alex. We got Susan from somewhere. Divide, Colorado. That's great. I love it. This is great. And I see the count of folks coming in continuing to rise. So we're going to do this just for maybe another 30 seconds and let the people who are coming in get in. Wisconsin, British Columbia, Florida. This is great. So, from all over the US, UK, that's fantastic. Canada, I see, British Columbia, that's great. All right. Well, let me do this. Let me be respectful of people's time. People have had the 2 minutes to get plugged in, and I think the count has slowed. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me just introduce Gil Phelan. Gil is, again, someone I've known for about 20 years now. He and I used to speak at a bunch of conferences together. We got to know one another. And I guess about maybe 3, 4 years ago, we started talking about how we could work together. Gil has been developing a beautiful, wonderful community in Costa Rica, Grandview Estates, and he and his business partner have done what they said they were going to do, which is really, really so rare in the business these days. I think the old saying when the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? And Gil and his business partner are certainly emblematic of that. When the going got tough, they kept going, and they've delivered a wonderful, beautiful community and brought it into existence. And so he's here to talk about that today. He will be talking about Costa Rica generally as well, so we can get an idea of what it's like to live there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then he'll talk about Grandview Estates. But during the presentation, I would encourage you, if you have questions about Costa Rica or Grandview, put them into the Q&A box at the bottom as you were just now putting in the places you're from. And at the end of the presentation, I will scroll through, pick out some of the questions, get them to Gil. What we typically do is if they're really personal and specific questions, we'll let Gil reach out to you directly to answer those because they're very specific to you and your circumstances, and we'll stick with the general questions more than anything else. So, Gil, we're going to hand it off to you. Thanks for being with us. Really excited to be working with you and what you're doing, and look forward to hearing the updates tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Really appreciate the kind words. And just right back at you for a little bit is, being working with you and knowing your projects in Belize and Nicaragua. I think we all together have really given people something that they can trust. There's just there's so many questions and concerns about people. It's just wonderful to have a partner like you and to have the experience behind us too that we can lean back on and let people know that, hey, we've been there for a while and we're going to be there for a while. So you can trust exactly what we're saying, and you come down and look for yourself and you can see for yourself, right?
Yep.
So
Thank you, Gil.
anyway,
Yeah.
let me I'll see if I can do this. I'm being as old as I am. I'm not an IT expert, but I'm going to try to share. And if you can let me know that if that's okay, Mike or Diego or somebody. Are you seeing the screen
I,
share?
I saw it for a second and then I didn't see it, Gil. So,
Really? Says you are screen sharing. Hmm. Let me stop
Diego,
it.
you still here?
Yes, I'm changing the view for everyone.
Okay, thank
Ah,
you.
okay. There we go. So it wasn't something I did.
You should be able to see it now.
Can you see it, Mike?
I'm still seeing Gil. If anybody else is just see.
I'll stop
Oh
the
no,
share.
people can see it. Other people
Okay,
can see it. So great. I don't know why I can't, but doesn't matter. So excellent.
okay. As long as
Okay.
we're seeing that there, we're good and we'll get started. Thank you, folks,
All
for
right.
your patience. Uh, anyway, this is a presentation mainly about Grandview Estates, but Costa Rica is not a huge country. So you're going to get to know the country intimately as you visit and if you decide to invest. And there's lots of ways to do that. It's been interesting over the years that people have just had a multitude of reasons, whether they wanted to just completely move permanently. Uh, maybe Canadians are really happy with the 6 month and 6 month program. Canada's pretty strict with their 6 months, I mean, to the day. So there's a lot of Canadians choose that works well. Of course, they get out of their brutal winter, depending on, I know British Columbia for sure can be a little bit cold. So I'm going to cover what I know about Costa Rica and there we go. Here's the agenda for this evening. The overview, tourism, healthcare, why Fortune 500 companies invest, etc. Uh, the overview of Costa Rica, and we'll have a map up here in a little bit. One of the things that I've always enjoyed the most about Costa Rica is its culture. The people are just so nice, and I'm not gonna say different. I mean, depending on where you go in the United States, you got lots of nice people too. But in general, and it's funny when you're coming into immigration, even right? You get off the plane, you're probably a little bit stressed and tired. There's just something different about the Costa Ricans. You can see it in their smile, right? At the usually the immigration officers I know here, especially Miami, right? Very intimidating. These guys here, they smile at you and they mean it. They're very friendly, and you get that feel as soon as you come into the country. So that's one of the most important things to me. And of course, I did marry a Costa Rican lady, and gosh, we've been married almost 24 years now. So uh, I've got to know her family very well, obviously, and the culture and things like that. So that's one of the most important things to me. I mean, houses are houses and land's land, right? That's all important. But if you're living in a place you don't like, that's not a good thing, right? So tourism, I mean, it's a huge part of the country as far as its economy. I think it's almost 3 million people a year visit Costa Rica now. And the country's basically around 5 million people. So uh, it's very important. It always has been important. It's been a very big growth factor for Costa Rica over the years. And with some new news this last week, it's really nice to see uh, Marco Rubio was down in Costa Rica talking with the president there, and so the United States is kind of going to be back in being maybe a big brother, you could say. It's kind of held that position for a long time. Because my wife, and she fills me in, when she was growing up, they really got their views of the United States from movies and things like that, maybe some TV shows. And so they're so happy to host us and to get to know us. And when they go to the United States, they're usually pretty thrilled with it. So uh, the healthcare and culture will definitely, the healthcare especially, will zoom in on here in a little bit. Uh, Fortune 500 companies. I mean, the education in Costa Rica is awesome. When you get to meet young kids, well, they don't go to 12th grade, they finish their school at 11th grade. But the books that they have to read and the education they get, I have to say, is much different than what I see in the States these days. They're pretty brutal with them as far as some serious education. And I mean, I would have to say almost all my Costa Rican family, the younger ones, uh, have advanced degrees, MBAs and their CPAs, and they've got their master's degrees. So it's a very educated country. So of course, when you can go to a country like Costa Rica and hire engineers and professionals for, a third to a half less, that's a pretty good incentive to move down there. So there's lots of IT centers there and call centers because their English is very good. And so that's really one of the reasons Fortune 500 companies move there initially. And, they get breaks on the electric and different taxes and things like that. So it's listen, anybody out there is an entrepreneur. I don't have time in this presentation, but there's some serious incentives to start businesses there. They know how to encourage people to move there and encourage them to start businesses that are going to help them help the local economy. They want you there to hire people and export products and import products, etc. So it's a really neat place to explore if you're an entrepreneur. I promise you. The Caribbean area, we are on the Caribbean side of the country, and even to this day, it's amazing the lack of information I see about that. Everybody judges Costa Rica based on the other 2/3 of the country as far as the weather pattern and the times of year to visit. And we're just opposite. The best times on the Caribbean are September and October, just the most blue skies, low humidity, no rain. Meanwhile, in the Central Valley and Pacific, it's raining like crazy. So that's something that I spend a lot of time educating people on when we take tours. And we're going to cover some construction in the Grandview community. I have to say that the impetus for many people, I mean, right from the time we started Grandview in about 2007. We designed their Social Security money. Maybe it's 1,500 a month, 2,000 a month today. That was important because we saw back then that the Pacific prices were just crazy. And to double and triple of what we things or selling their house in the United States. They're coming down here without a mortgage because you healthcare cost will be based on your income. I've been there for a while, but I'm paying $80 a month for my wife's health care and mine. And that includes, all prescriptions. There's no co-pays. And, they do heart transplants and things like that. So that's a really, really important savings, along with the tax incentives, very cheap taxes on your land. The great climate. That's another thing that people are not aware of on the Caribbean side of the country. We don't have the 6-month rainy season and the 6-month dry season that the other side of the country has. We have basically we have 2 months out of the year. Maybe July and December are rainier months than the rest. But other than that, it's 75 degrees at night, 85 degrees during the day most of the year. So it's very, very nice climate to live in. At Grandview, you do not need to have AC and no heat. Basically, fans, design your home properly with, well ventilated windows. And, you know, the more windows and screens you have, the better. Vacation homes and rental incomes. That's something that has definitely changed since our inception. Back then, people kind of had the thought, well, hey, listen, if I'm, especially Canadians, right? If I'm here 6 months of the year, what can I do with the other 6? I'll rent it out. Years ago, there was really no way to market that, right? You could get a website, but who's going to see it? Now with VRBO and Airbnb, it's a viable investment for sure. And I know the ones we have at Grandview now, the people who are renting out are just full all the time, and they're getting anywhere from $80 to $100 a night. So it's a really viable way to get your foot in the door, even if you're not ready to move there full time. You can build, have a place to go when you want, and then rent it when you're not there. We have permanent residents there that help with the maintenance of an Airbnb. So they'll get the local folks to come in and clean. And I mean, you can even have cooks come down if you want to have a cook for your Airbnb people. They'll come in, they'll cook them breakfast and dinner and things like that. So it's really grown and changed a lot over the years. Future stability and retirement planning. Well, I mean, one part of the stability I have to mention is that Costa Rica does not have a standing army. It abolished it in 1948. They were having a civil war, you know, kind of like we had, you know, one side against the other, and you know, I guess God intervened or whatever, and they woke up and they says, you know, we're fighting. We love our country. We want a better place to live, and here we are killing each other. What are we doing, right? So constitutionally, they have banned the military, and they said, let's use that money we were wasting on killing each other, and let's provide a better education and great health care for people. So I think that's, you know, part of the cultural niceness that I've seen is they did not grow up in a military dictatorship like some other countries. Uh, Things have changed even since then, but I mean, 20 years ago, Panama was a military dictatorship. Now it's much more democratic for sure. So those are some of the reasons. The stability, like I said, we without the standing army, they still do have two big brothers. I have to say, over the years, I've seen the United States and Canada just step up. They bring, like near where we live, we're about 14 miles from the coast. You can see the helicopters take off of our hospital ships that the US sends down here a couple times a year. They'll pull into Limon and they do minor surgeries and take care of people for free. But they have several military helicopters that lift off from the deck of the ship. It looks like a little aircraft carrier, and they zip around up around the Nicaragua border and Panama and all over the place, just, you know, letting people know that the United States did not forget about them and just leave us alone in Costa Rica. And so far, so good. Business opportunities, I've already mentioned. Investment opportunities, again, I mean, we can't do it all, but I see some awesome deals with hotels and different type of businesses for people right on the beach. So there's all kinds of good stuff. And you know, Americans, I have to say, have much more of a leaning towards entrepreneurial sorts of things. So coming to Costa Rica and buying a business and making it really soar, you know, as long as, you know, you're not going to buy a business that's not looking good anyway, right? So as long as that business is viable, the odds are that you're going to come in with your abilities and make it better than it's ever been and be a real business opportunity. As far as the economy and the gross domestic product, it's just booming, booming, booming. When you go through San Jose, there's just more and more towers. Most of them seem to be high tech. I have to say, it's the IBM, Intel, just on and on. Those are the sorts of companies that are moving in permanently. So And the baby boomers, we can't forget that there's still close to 10,000 people every day uh, hitting that retirement age. So it's definitely a place where you could leverage your investments, whether it's, or if it's just Social Security. But if you got Social Security and a pension, you're good to go. I had a guy that was a prison warden, and he said, Gil, I'm not sure. Hope I can get by on my retirement down there. And I asked him, well, how much is it a month? He said, well, it's about 7,000 a month. I said, you're gonna have your hardship is gonna be figuring out how to spend it, because that's just too much money for where we live. So if you've got that kind of money, 4, 5, 6,000 a month, you're pretty much rich. Activities. I think this is probably personally what drew me in the beginning. I had never been to Costa Rica. I don't even know if I could find it on the map years ago. But I was working with a German guy, and he suggested, I said, hey, listen, I'm a PADI scuba instructor. I said, I would really like to open up a dive shop somewhere. And my initial thought was Honduras. And the guy I was working with told me, no, 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 no. You got to go to Costa Rica and check it out. He said, they don't have any hurricanes. It's a beautiful place, great diving. I said, okay, well, why not? So from my first trip there, it was 6 months and I was replanted. Okay, I sold the house that I had in the States, got rid of everything I had, and I moved to Costa Rica in 6 months. And part of it was my initial visit was the activities and the natural beauty, because I'm a real outdoor type of guy. And I just, at the end of my weekend, what we did was, it was like a 16-hour tour for the day. You went to the waterfalls, you went to the coffee plantation, you went on a river trip to see the monkeys and crocodiles, went to a butterfly farm, on and on. It was one long day. But by the end of that weekend, I knew I wanted to at least give it a try. And despite the fact that I've never even heard Spanish in my life, and it's a Spanish speaking country, but that's something that you're going to learn, even if you're as dumb as I am. If you work at it a little bit, you're going to not only get by, but you'll give a lot of entertainment to your friends down there by speaking like a 2-year-old all the time. But we have the swimming. I think my favorite though is the rafting. That's actually us. And you don't see the picture about 5 minutes after this where the boat was empty. And that guy in the back there, the guide had to yank everybody in by their life jacket. But that's awesome. It's probably my most favorite thing to do in Costa Rica. Uh, Obviously the hiking. I mean, there's a hiking trail that starts on the Caribbean, and you can go through all the jungles over to the Pacific. I think it's about 250 miles. Now, I don't think I'd be able to, with my knees anymore. I doubt that I would be able to do that one. But if you're younger and adventurous, that's an awesome way to see the country. Fishing and boating, the Caribbean is still completely untapped as far as fishing. What's happening there is there's lots of local guys that'll take you out in their panga for tarpon, world-class tarpon, world-class snook fishing, red snapper. But that's right there at the shore. I mean, I don't think you have to go more than 3 miles offshore for everything. And some of it's up the rivers that come out to the Caribbean. Uh, so if you like fishing and boating, and if you you can get bigger boats, and if you go offshore for the marlin and tuna, it's totally untapped. It's like going back in time, 30, 40 years here in the States, or maybe more than that, maybe 50 or 60. So diving and snorkeling, like I said, I'm a PADI scuba instructor, so I love the diving. And my favorite place in the world is part of Costa Rica. It's Isla del Caño, Caño Island. That's a spectacular, unbelievable place. It's kind of like Galapagos. It's a volcanic mount popping up through the ocean there. And, you know, with the it's sharks, I mean, millions of sharks and whale sharks and all that stuff. So horseback riding right there at Grandview, we have horses and just unlimited amount of trails. You'd never be able to cover them all in your lifetime, most likely. So if you love horses, we're specifically friendly with horses at our project. We even gave a little leeway on each side of our interior roads, about 3 meters, 15 feet, so, or 12 feet, so you can walk up and down a road without having to go on the gravels and things like that with your horse. And bird watching right out your backyard. There's parrots and toucans and monkeys and just everything that you can imagine right in the backyard. It's incredible. That's what draws me the most to the lifestyle. Every single morning when I'm there, me and the dogs will hike, you know, 5, 8 miles every morning. You just never get tired of it. Healthcare, medical services, and education. I have to say that I've had need to go to different hospitals in San Jose, not personally, but for family. And there's not only is there nothing lacking in the care, we have a brand new hospital right next to Grandview. It's in Securities. It's not brand new, it's probably 5 years old now. But when you go there, the thing that really stands out is we don't have physician's assistants, and I'm not putting physician's assistants down, but physician's assistants are not in Costa Rica. You're going to either see a registered nurse or a doctor. And like the amazing thing is you can walk into the hospital, and I've seen this happen. I was there just for a routine test, and a guy comes into the desk and he's saying, well, I would like to have an EKG. And the lady's, okay, have a seat. And the guy walks in for his EKG. All right. It's just, it's a different world down there as far as the healthcare. And once you're a permanent resident, you know, it's going to be a very, very affordable option for you to take care of yourself with world-class healthcare. That's part of the Social Security system. And that's paid, I mean, there's a big portion of that is paid by the employers. You know, they pay a percentage and you pay a percentage out of your pay. So that because it's a country of 5 million, it's not like the States where you have, you know, hundreds of millions of people. So there's very, very good coverage without really going too much into your paycheck. Like it says there, 28% of the budget's used for public health. The life expectancy, unfortunately for the United States, we're going down and they're going up. So they're at 79, I think, years today on average. Then it's both men and women. The literacy rate, like I said, is just the education is really, really very, very good. And the other thing is they're all learning English, and a lot of them Chinese too, as a matter of fact. But so years ago, it was maybe a little more difficult to find somebody in town or whatever that spoke English, but that's kind of a thing of the past as well. You know, maybe they're not the most fluent or whatever, but wherever you're at, you'll probably be able to communicate until you learn the Spanish. Living in Costa Rica. Residency. Now, one of the things that's happened over the last year is they've gotten lenient again. People were taking advantage of coming into Costa Rica. They would let you bring in a car every couple years, you know, with no taxes. Well, what people were doing was bringing in the cars and reselling them to make money. And that was not the point. So they cracked down on that, but they've come back again, and you can bring in all your goods very, very cheap. So if you have a whole container of your household goods in a car, it's going to be way, way, way cheaper than when I moved there years ago. And residency, they also came down to if you invest $150,000 in a house, a business, whatever it might be, $150,000 will get you an automatic permanent residency. And when you look at Grandview, I'll just get ahead of myself just a little bit so you understand. Basically, to buy a lot and build a home is going to be starting around $150,000. So if you do decide to do that, you're already going to have your permanent residency. You don't have to worry about the rentistas and the investment category and all that other stuff that's more complicated. So it's really quite easy to move there and get residency. Moving there, buying a house, it's not like other countries where you may have to have a local be part of your corporation to buy something. No, this is just like in the States, you put the house in your name, your personal name, or you can decide to put it in a corporation. That's easy to do as well. Where you want to do that is in case you're rolling over an IRA, it's required usually by that to have a corporation. So it's very easy. There's some of the costs to look at. Of course, everybody's going to be a little bit different, but groceries, you'll be amazed at the price of the vegetables and the fruits and everything else. And once you get accustomed to the way people live in Costa Rica, you're going to have a much healthier diet, because everywhere you go is like going down the street from our project. There's a guanabana you see there, that picture, soursop guanabana. During the season, those are everywhere and they're delicious. So you just can't help every part of the year you're going to be running into different types of fruits and vegetables that are common at that time of year. So you'll never run out of fresh fruit and vegetables. And in the States, I know they kind of make a big deal of getting your food from with. It's kind of to do that because who knows, your meat comes from Chicago or whatever. Getting your is more common. And it's just the way it is. It doesn't take any extra effort, and you're not paying all the extra money for organic stuff. And what people will do is they've got this stuff growing in their back, weeds basically, right? Suppose one family member will be out by the road when it's guanabana's table, and they sit out and make a couple extra bucks. So food and fresh food and healthy food is very normal there. You can look down at some of the things there. So the monthly total, basically $1,500 is very doable. Obviously, the more you have, comfortable you'll be. If you don't have 15 going into it, just to have, it may be a little difficult for you. So that'll give you some idea. I mean, 30 years ago, it might have been a different story, but as cheap as that is to live these days, compared to some other countries maybe, or the past, it's not as cheap as it was. Still very, very reasonable and doable for most people, especially just on Social Security. If you have a couple that's making 1,200. They talk about the happiest people in the world. The literacy, well, there's a life expectancy too. It's longer. I would people's right, but like I said, you'll notice it. You'll notice a difference. And I mean, just the last time, Austin, I didn't have signal. I wanted to get actually Uber down there, and I connect to Wi-Fi, and the guard was over there at the building, and he came over. We're talking. He gives me his phone and does all my phone calls for me and gets me in. I was very happy about it. He's just so helpful. That's just common. That's just the thing there. Go. Well, they are building a brand new road, and they're finishing it up finally on our side of the country. Did have to borrow a little bit of money, but they've got a beautiful new road that went from 2 lanes to 4 on the Caribbean side. Makes traveling back and forth to San Jose easier. Getting to the main airport will be about, usually 2 hours and 15 minutes. When the road's done, it's going to be less than that. So let's just say a couple hours to round it off. And you can even leave your car at your house and take a bus from San Jose out to our place for $5. So it's a very first worldy place now, definitely not third world. Cultural stuff, I would have to say that's definitely more in the city. And I do go into the city on occasion for different things, and we'll take advantage of movie theaters. Man, they got some IMAX theaters with those chairs, bring you food and everything else. It's very interesting. There's the Fortune 500. We had kind of covered that. If you look at some of the businesses though, GE, Intel, you look at the big names. Dole, actually, my wife was working for Dole. This go there in San Jose. 2008 CAFTA. Let me cover that really quick because I know we're talking a lot about trade agreements and tariffs and things like that these days. CAFTA was the Central American Free Trade Agreement that changed the total face of Costa Rica. It's just the changes it made, you wouldn't believe unless you saw it yourself. Costa Rica used to be a government run place, and the government was union workers. So like the electric company, the phone company, all the companies were government run and unionized. Can you imagine anything worse? They had a stranglehold on everything. So when they were starting to talk about the CAFTA coming in, that was a big deal because they knew that was not going to be good for the government tyranny that they had. Just, I mean, a tyranny as opposed to working. It definitely was never a tyrannical government, but they had a lock on the businesses. And I mean, phones, you couldn't get a phone. When I moved there, getting a cell phone was like a miracle. It was just crazy. And that's because they really didn't grow up with a capitalistic or entrepreneurial experience. So they didn't understand that, free trade and having more goods for people make life better and make the economy better. And this was one of the first, oh gosh, I'm just skipping my mind. Not a ratification, but they let it to the people to decide. So they actually put it out there, and it was a democratic vote. Hey, whoever has the most votes for CAFTA or not is going to win. And I think it was like a 51% vote for CAFTA. And everything since then has made the country much better insofar as things that make us gringos feel comfortable. It's really opened up a lot of good things for life. The Caribbean, like I said, there's so much. I'm not going to take all your time. We're already about 30 minutes or so. Try to wrap it up around 40. So anything that piques your interest, or you want to know anything about what I've talked about in a little more detail, let me know. The Moline expansion was the big deal going on our coast. The Panama Canal, which you've been hearing about lately, even though it's gotten widened, it's still too narrow for some of the huge they call them post-Panamax ships. They don't fit through the canal. So they needed places to redistribute the loads to smaller boats so they can go different places. And they started doing that about 15 years ago. And it's complete. The first part's complete in Limon, which is about 20 miles from us. And that just made a huge difference on the whole coast. The town itself has been brought alive by that opportunity. And it was the real reason for the expansion of the road, because 80% of the goods in Costa Rica are brought in through Limon. It used to be a 2-lane highway. So you had 1 lane of stuff coming from the coast into San Jose and beyond. And it really was just overloaded. So the Moline expansion was another thing that was a really game changer for the Caribbean coast. We also have the Central America's largest hydroelectric project right behind Grandview. It's about 8-10 miles behind us, and that's supplying the needs for the Caribbean coast as it expands, and they're making money. They're selling the hydroelectric, green hydroelectric power to Panama and Nicaragua. Costa Rica is supposed to be pretty much 100% green and carbon neutral by 2030. And for them, it wasn't the biggest deal because they've been doing this for years. They have so much hydroelectric power. It's really, and it's not the hugest country. So they've, for a long time, been supplying the needs in a very green way. Free trade zone, that's something we could talk about if you're an entrepreneur. I can tell you more about the benefits to that. That's encouraging people to start businesses from out of the country to come in and give jobs to the locals. The investments have been crazy. It doesn't even, some of this stuff is a little bit old because the money's just been rolling in for the expansion. Hopefully we'll have a bigger international airport as well someday. Right now you have to fly into San Jose. Okay, that's the Limon. That's an aerial view of Limon and the coast. There's the Moline expansion. They built that island. That's an island in the, actually it's right next to Mike. Mike has some beautiful piece of property along the coast there in Costa Rica that he's going to be working on. But this is right off the coast there, and they built that whole island with huge rocks over the years. And I think that's one of three. As business grows, they're going to build more. It's been a great asset to our local economy. You'll see the temperatures. I explained a little bit about that and how pleasant it is, especially on the Caribbean side of the country. We don't have that wet and dry season. Now we'll cover Grandview a little bit in detail. You can see where we're at, kind of. I don't know if that map's the best thing in the world, but if you come over here, we're on that side of the Talamanca Mountains, and we have some nice views of the Caribbean coast. And it takes about 2 hours to get from San Jose, drive over the mountain into our town of Siquirres. These are photos that I've taken over the years. We have a cool volcano, Turrialba volcano. It's not one of the ones that build up pressure and is going to explode all over the place, but yeah, but actually I saw the first eruption. I don't know if I forget what year it was. Might have been around 2010, but it's been dormant for a long, long time, and it started spewing some smoke. So it's really neat. Especially Grandview has some lots that face that volcano, and it's gorgeous, especially in the mornings. So, you can see the Caribbean off to one side, you see the volcano over there, and mountains the other side. It's gorgeous. And down here in the left-hand corner, you'll see the straight line out there with the water. That's the Caribbean water out there. Here's our waterfall, one of the waterfalls we have. It's always running, and you can always take a nice swim there in the morning. We have one community pool that we take care of with homeowners fees, which are $50 a month. And like I said, we have horses and monkeys. Our lots are all 1.25 acres minimum And we have some left in phase 4 because we've sold out of phases 1 through 3. We only have 28 lots left out of 121. So they're 1.25 acres, and some of them are 2 to 3 acres. So we have rivers and waterfalls flowing throughout. We have the largest national park in the country right up the road from us. You drive up about 5 miles straight up the mountain, and you get La Amistad National Park. And it's just the most gorgeous place you'll ever see, and that provides us with all our water, all our fresh air, all our oxygen. Beaches, half an hour away, you hit the first beach and some restaurants. And if you go down south from there, the whole coast is open to the public. The government does not let people stop access to the oceans. So you can literally pull over anywhere you can and jump in the water and have your own beachfront day. And obviously there's some more popular beaches with towns and things like that. So if you want privacy, great. If you don't mind a few people, there's some beautiful, beautiful places to go swimming every day. This is not a promised community. It's in place. We've got our roads, we've got our water, electricity in place. They're being maintained by the HOA. So, it's ready to build. The water's there. It's not going to be a delay until we get to a certain point. We mentioned the community center. Internet, we've got fiber optic actually running to Grandview Estates now, but I'm not sure, Elon Musk has his Starlink is working pretty good down there. I think it cost a little bit more than the fiber optic internet, but I think the Starlink has changed internet forever throughout the world. So you can pretty much be wherever you want and have high-speed internet and phone these days. When I first moved there, we had that. Do you remember when you called up a website page and it took 15 minutes for it to come onto your screen? That's how it was when I started there. So that's gone. Thank you, God. You can build with our builder. You can build yourself. You don't have to build. You don't have to build with us. But we're there. We've connected with the local builder. To me, that's the best I've ever had. So if you'd like to use him, he's available. Architects, engineers are there. We've greased the skids to make it very, very easy to come into Grandview Estates. When we started, there was no roads, there was no electricity, right? Nobody knew who we were. They thought, who are these crazy gringos here? Were they drug dealers or money launderers? What are they doing here? Right? So all that's changed. We've got connections with everybody, lawyers, architects, builders. The local municipality knows us well now. So everything is as easy as it can possibly be, and not that much different than you may be used to in the States. So there are obviously some differences, but it's not like it used to be. It's very, very easy to do. So we've sold out of phases 1 through 3. We're working down here in phase 4, and that is going to be our last phase. One of the advantages I like to point out, because I know there's other projects out there that literally have thousands of lots. So you're always going to be competing with the developer if you want to resell. It won't be too long before everything is sold as far as we, the developers, are concerned. So resales are going to be in your lap. So there's going to be more of a way to consider it as a resellable investment. Here's more of a map of phase 4. Show everything's surveyed, everything's legally in place. It's not something for the future. And if you're interested, I really highly suggest taking our tour. Actually, we expanded the time. We do 3, 4, or 5 day tours. And our goal is to give you an overall feel, not just of Grandview, because most people are of the age where they know what houses are about, they know what land's about. They don't have to inspect it, for 12 days to see what's there. I think the most important thing for people who may want to come down, just, hey, but just your initial look to see if it's possible, if it looks doable. That's what our tours are about. We go from San Jose the whole way down to the Panama border, the Grandview, the local towns, the beaches, the restaurants, just to give you a feel of our side of the country, because it is different than obviously San Jose. It's different than the Pacific. So by the time you get done with our tour, you're gonna have a pretty good idea if this is something that's appealing to you or not. And it's not a timeshare. There's no pressure. I mean, we want people who are adventurous. We want people who can see the vision, who want to have a place to live that's natural, that you can grow your own fruits and vegetables and probably the world's best soils, and to be around like-minded people. And if you don't feel that that's a fit for you, that's okay. We want you to be happy there. Pricing, basically, we kind of made a generic pricing for each lot. It used to be by square meter. Most lots are 99,000. There's a few premium lots that are a little bit more. But like I said, with our building costs, 75 bucks a square foot. So do the math. If you build 1,000 square foot house with a big porch, right, that's 75,000 plus the lot. I don't think that pricing is normal in most places that I know, especially not Costa Rica, and a lot of other countries would have a hard time meeting that price point. And this is not for a shack. This is for a, very well constructed, solid block home that's built with materials. The rafters are metal, treated metal, painted metal, so termites and things can't get into it. It would be hard to find any building that I'm aware of a better quality. And for $75 a square foot price is really incredible these days. We do in-house financing. Like I said, you can refer back to this if you need to. Because we don't have debt, we've paid for all this, the place is paid for. If you want to work out a particular in-house financing plan, we can work together with you as long as it's a win-win for both of us. So there's nothing in stone. It just depends on your situation and if we can make it work. So I have to admit that we have one offer I find a lot of people enjoy is a 2-year interest-free. That lets you get into it and make a few payments and be done with it quickly. Okay, I would say that's about it. I tried to cover as much as I could in however many minutes it was, 46 minutes. So there we go, Mike and Diego. If people have questions, we would like to encourage you to ask some questions, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Yes, indeed. Gil, thanks a lot. Great presentation. When I'm listening to you present, I've got to say, I feel like you and I are having a conversation. You just roll with it. It's off the top of your head. But actually, I think more importantly, it's from your heart. You are speaking from your heart. And that more than anything, I think is what captures me. And I hope folks, feel that the same way I do. It's the good, the bad, the ugly. You kind of lay it all out there. There is no such thing as a rose bush without thorns. But the roses are beautiful and they smell beautiful and they look beautiful. And so, for many people, not everybody, for almost everybody who's probably on this webinar and looking at property overseas, we all see the glass as way, way more than half full. And you've done a great job of really painting a very comprehensive picture of Costa Rica, very generally, but also of what you've been able to do at Grandview Estates, which is no small feat. Having done this now for 29 years, we've suffered a lot of ups and downs, and it's been a long slog a few times, and you've been right there slogging through it as well, and that's a big testament to who you are as a person and who you are as an organization, and we're really proud to be working with you. So thanks for the presentation tonight. Let me dig in here at the bottom of the page and see what kind of questions we have for you. I'm going to throw the hard ones at you first. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
So let's see here. I'm going to read a few, but here's a quick one. Do they take Medicare there?
No, not that I'm aware of. They've tried it a little bit. One thing that's interesting, my niece, she's a Costa Rican and she sells insurance for Blue Cross. There is a Blue Cross plan that's very reasonable that you can purchase in Costa Rica
Okay.
because you'll be paying the Costa Rican price for the Blue Cross insurance plan,
Mhm.
and it covers you there and the States, and it's very reasonable compared to some other options. But
Nice.
once you're Mike, once you're a permanent resident, I don't care. Let's say it's 200-300 a month based on your income. That's nothing. That's the end of it.
Yeah.
So a couple
Right.
thousand a year, you and your family, your wife is covered for everything. So,
Yep. That is a big benefit of Costa Rica, that once you become a resident, you're included in the medical system there, and it's a very good medical system as well. So, um, regarding rental management, you mentioned full-time residents help with that. Is it feasible? Is it feasible that these folks can handle all aspects of rental management? Alternatively, are there any rental management companies that service the area?
no, there's no rental management companies that I'm aware of. It's
Okay.
just the local residents take
Right.
care of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When will phase 4 be completed?
Well, I mean, it's completed, except it's not all sold yet. So I mean, the roads are in, the water and electricity. It's just a matter of selling those last few lots. I really, with the impetus we have today and the traction it seems, I'm thinking this year, next year, the 28 lots should be sold.
With the pace we've seen you keeping with us over the last 18 months, I agree with that statement. So, and I know you have some people down there right now, and you have some people coming next week or the week after, right? Don't you have
Yep,
folks?
I have yep, I have, and they're really interesting people. I have to say, we've got a great bunch of people that
Yep.
have been moving in. So one guy is down there from Orlando this weekend. He's going to be meeting with a friend of mine there, and I have two. I have a 4-day tour and a 5-day tour at the end of the month. And these
Okay.
people are from Philly. Uh, the last house we sold last month, or they're building now, is from Long Island. So
Okay.
yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's really the next step, right? I mean, if somebody's interested, I've got a couple more questions. I'll get to them in a second. But if people are interested, right? So, for example, do you have any pictures of the model homes? And so I think you do. So, that's certainly something that you can send to everybody who was here tonight.
Mhm,
But better than seeing the pictures is to get on an airplane and take one of the 4 or 5 day tours and
mhm.
really see how it feels when you're there, right?
I think that's the thing. It's the feel. Because I mean, that's what I had. You
Yeah.
know, that's what I mean. To take everything you've owned to sell it and move in 6 months is probably a little bit extreme, maybe. But I just fell in love with the place like nothing I could
Yeah.
imagine. Now,
Yep.
let me be a little bit frank with you too, not a little bit, but a lot frank, is that when I moved, I didn't speak any Spanish. I never
Yeah.
heard Spanish. I'm from the middle of PA, Pennsylvania. I don't know if they let Spanish people there years ago, Spanish speakers, but that was a little shocking to me. I moved and I said, "Holy crap, I can't read the signs, I can't speak the language." But
Yep.
that's if you're not adventurous, no, it's probably not a good
Yeah.
thing. But I thought, hey, this is a challenge, and and,
Yeah.
and it was very interesting and I learned.
And
So
and
it's
you
nothing
enjoyed
but
the challenge, right? I mean, it was something you enjoyed doing, so, right?
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And
So,
listen, when I learned my wife, Myrna, she's Costa Rican. She's
yep.
always helped me. If things get difficult, she translates for me. But when I'm working with the builder, me and him, I had to learn Spanish because he's not
Yeah.
good in English,
Yep.
refuses to say anything in English. So, you know,
Yep.
you,
So you
you got to
did.
learn it. And
Exactly.
yeah, it was
So,
nothing.
Gil, we're right on 6 o'clock. I always like to be
Okay.
very respectful of people's time, but let me quickly give me short answers. What is
Yes.
the average home size in the community?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably say around 1,200 if you'd average them out. Got some
Okay.
bigger, some smaller.
Okay. 12 to 1,500 sounds about right when I've
Oh,
looked
yeah.
at some of the stuff there. How long is the building process?
We could build you whatever you want in 6 months.
Very good. Thank you. What do you need to do to get permanent residence?
There's several ways. It gets a little complicated, but if you're going to be in Grandview
Can
and
I Okay, let me do this.
yes,
You're right. That is a very specific question, and the answer is actually specific also to the asker. Age,
okay,
income, there's a lot of variables. So, Carlos, you asked that question. Would you please email in, and we will make sure that Gil responds specifically to you in that case. So that'll be better than just trying to give a very general answer. And then Carlos also asked, just buy the lot or something different? I think the question is, can you maybe I'll just try it this. Can you buy the lot and then build a house later, or how does that work? So just
yes,
flesh it out.
yes, whatever you want. I mean, some people bought one, two, or three to build on one and have a couple for investment, or buy one and build when they're ready. 5-year plans seem popular for
Okay,
whatever reason over the years. So,
makes sense, right? Yeah. And then the last question we're going to get to is, how far is the development from Sarchi?
Sarchi, I would say probably 2.5 to 3 hours.
Okay. All right. Very good. Depends on who's driving, doesn't it?
That's true.
Yeah. Well, hey, Gil, thank you very much. Thanks for giving us an hour of your time. And thank you, everybody who joined us tonight, for giving us an hour. And I hope that you found it very worthwhile. There will be a follow-up email going out shortly after the webinar ends. It'll have contact information. You can reach out to Gil directly with any further questions or any specific questions that you have. And we'll look forward to doing it again one of these days, Gil.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.